Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching TTBurger Game Reviews here on YouTube, and I'm your host, Tony. We're back with more BioShock action here, as we look at the last game in the BioShock franchise here, part 3 of 3 parts. Last time I took a look at BioShock 2, gave it an 8.5 out of 10. It was a great game, not as good as the first game, but still a fantastic game, definitely worth owning if you like the first game. Now we're going to go back to the year 1912. Way before our time, way before we were all born, way before YouTube, the computer, the television, all that stuff. And the game where we don't go into Rapture this time, we go into the highlit city, floating cloud city of Columbia, where we are introduced to a new character called Booker DeWitt, voiced by Troy Baker. And that game in question right here is BioShock Infinite for the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, PC, PS4, Xbox One, all that stuff, and more. And this game also comes with a digital copy of BioShock, but you know, we are looked at BioShock, we're not going to talk about that, we're going to talk about BioShock Infinite right about now.
Are you going to just sit there?
As compared to what? Standing?
Not standing.
The year is 1912. A man named Booker DeWitt is sent on a mission to a city in the sky. When BioShock Infinite was first released, it was hailed by critics as a masterpiece of storytelling and artistic triumph. Its stunning visuals, and a narrative that seemed to defy convention, weaving together complex themes of American exceptionalism, racism, and parallel universes, swept up critics and players alike, taking players out of the dark, decaying halls of the underwater city of Rapture and into the bright, sun-drenched, and seemingly utopian floating city of Columbia was a risky move by developer Irrational Games. The game was initially lauded for its ambition and creativity, winning numerous Game of the Year awards. However, with the passage of time and benefit of hindsight, a closer look reveals a title that, despite its grand aspirations, still delivers a memorable, worthwhile experience, even with its noticeable flaws. It stands as a mixed bag of brilliant ideas and frustrating shortcomings, ultimately earning a respectable but mixed score. This analysis will dive into why BioShock Infinite is a game of undeniable highs and equally frustrating lows, and why it remains a compelling, if imperfect, journey. The narrative premise of BioShock Infinite is undeniably captivating and hooks you from the very first moment. As Booker DeWitt, a troubled former Pinkerton agent, you are sent to the isolated city of Columbia on a seemingly simple mission to bring us the girl and wipe away the debt. The girl is Elizabeth, a young woman with a mysterious and extraordinary power to manipulate tears in the fabric of reality. The bond develops between Booker and Elizabeth is the emotional heart of the game, and the dynamic is the single most compelling element. Their relationship is the game's greatest triumph, evolving from a tense, transactional partnership into a deep, protective friendship forged through shared trauma and desperate desire for freedom. Elizabeth's character arc, as she moves from a scared, naive prisoner who has only ever known the inside of a tower to a capable, determined ally, is brilliantly executed and stands as a high point in modern video game storytelling. Her growth and resilience make her a character you generally care about, and her infectious curiosity about the world around her helps to draw the player deeper into the narrative. While the main plot is strong, the story, for all its ambition and grand scale, occasionally sidelines its fascinating subplots. The initial hours of the game are a masterclass in world building, using subtle environmental storytelling to reveal Columbia's dark side. You walk through the pristine city streets and hear seemingly innocent conversations, but you quickly notice the underlying racism and religious fanaticism. This sets the stage for a deep exploration on how a city built on the concept of American exceptionalism could evolve into a violent, racist, and religiously fanatical dystopia. The propaganda posters, historical monuments, and overheard conversations all paint a picture of a society founded on a twist exclusionary ideology. Yet, as the story progresses, these complex, compelling themes are sometimes overshadowed by the frantic pace of the main plot and the focus on the science fiction elements. The rebellion of the Vox Populi, for example, feels more like a shadow backdrop than a fully realized conflict. It's introduced as a significant and morally ambiguous force, fighting against the oppression of Comstock's regime. However, its motivations and the internal struggles of its members are barely explored. The game promises a thoughtful exploration of radicalism and class warfare, but ultimately, it rushes past these ideas in favor of an increasingly convoluted science fiction plot involving alternate timelines and parallel worlds. While this focus on abstract concepts can be a fascinating experience for players who enjoy thinking about big ideas, it does come at the expense of a more grounded, emotionally resonant story for some. The fleeting glimpse we get of the Vox Populi and their leader, Daisy Fitzroy, leaves a sense of missed opportunity, as the story could have been as compelling as the main plot. The ending itself is a perfect encapsulation of the game's narrative struggles and triumphs. It is both a masterstroke of storytelling and a source of significant frustration for some. The final reveal, which recontextualizes the entire game and the fate of its characters, is brilliant in its design, but can be incredibly confusing. It requires players to have a strong grasp of quantum physics and theoretical concepts, which can feel like a test rather than a satisfying conclusion. conclusion. For all its emotional weight, the ending's intellectual demands can alienate a portion of the audience who may feel more confused and baffled than rewarded by the grand reveal. However, for those who appreciate a bold and daring conclusion, it remains one of the most memorable and discussed endings in video game history. Booker and Elizabeth are the game's undeniable stars. Their relationship feels authentic and earned, and Elizabeth in particular stands out as one of gaming's best companions. She's not just a person to be protected, or a damsel in distress or anything like that. She's an active participant who helps you in both combat and exploration. Her ability to tier in useful items like health packs or turrets makes her an invaluable partner. The evolving dynamic between the two, from a tense transactional partnership to a deep protective friendship forged through shared trauma and desperate desire for freedom, is BioShock Infinite's greatest emotional triumph. The voice setting for both characters is superb, with Troy Baker providing Booker's gruff, world-weary voice, and Cody Draper delivering an incredible performance of Elizabeth, capturing her fear, wonder, and determination. However, the supporting cast could have been more developed. Father Comstock, the game's antagonist, is more of a caricature than a complex villain. He is simply a symbol of oppressive authority, a stark contrast to the morally ambiguous and complex villains of the first two BioShock games. His motivations are tied to his fanaticism, but his personal history and descent are never fully fleshed out, leaving him more like a plot device than a living, breathing person. Other characters like the mysterious and enigmatic Lutek twins feel more like clever plot devices than fully formed people. The game focuses so heavily on its two leads that the rest of the cast feels secondary, which detracts from the overall narrative impact, at least from the film like a world populated by archetypes rather than people.
Where am I?
Back in the land of the living. Here, let me.
For the gameplay aspect here, the Skyhook is an exciting addition, transforming combat into a fast vertical dance across Columbia skylines. It's exhilarating to grind off on a rail, leap off and land a powerful melee attack on an enemy. This mechanic adds a sense of flow and speed to the game that was absent in the previous installments, and it's at best makes you feel like a dynamic airborne combatant. The Skyhook traversal allows for a unique multi-level combat environment, making the arenas feel more dynamic than a simple flat ground. However, this novelty quickly wears thin, as the core combat loops consist of being funneled into a large open arena to fight waves of enemies, a format that can feel repetitive after a few hours. The enemies themselves, from the standard Founders and Vox Populi to the intimidating Handyman Patriots, are visually distinct, but lack tactical variety. You often find yourself using the same basic strategy to defeat them, a far cry from the creative and emergent combat of the first two BioShock games, where you can manipulate the environment and use plasmids in unexpected ways. The gunplay itself feels functional, but lacks a satisfying weight and variety of other first-person shooters. The weapons are functional but uninspired, and the game's weapon limit feels restrictive. You can only carry 2 guns at a time, which limits your options in a fight and forces you to constantly scavenge for new weapons more than one time. Similarly, the Vigors, the game's version of the original game's plasmids, are a huge step back. They lack the creativity and depth of the plasmids, offering fewer unique combinations and tactical opportunities. While Vigors like Bucking Bronco and Murder of Crows are fun, they simply don't have the same level of upgrades or versatility as their predecessors. The result is a combat system that feels more like a generic shooter with powers tacked on, rather than a truly integrated and innovative experience. Visually, BioShock Infinite is a masterpiece. Columbia is a stunning and vibrant world that stands in stark contrast to the dark and decaying Rapture. The art style is a blend of Americana and Art Deco with floating islands, grand public buildings, and meticulous details that bring the city to life. The use of light and color is masterful, creating a beautiful and sun-drenched world that feels both inviting and unsettling. The character designs are also excellent, from the period-accurate clothing of the citizens to the terrifying mechanical designs of the handymen. The game's visual identity is the strongest asset, and is a world that is a genuine pleasure to explore. The sound design in BioShock Infinite is equally impressive as the visuals, with a clever soundtrack that mixes classic American folk songs with old-timey covers of modern hits, perfectly capturing the game's bizarre, anachronistic tone. Hearing a barbershop quartet sing a rendition of God Only Knows, or a cover of Everybody Wants to Rule the World, playing on a phonogram, is an inspired creative choice that adds a unique layer to the game's atmosphere. The voice setting, especially for Booker and Elizabeth, is superb, conveying a wide range of emotions and bringing the characters to life. While the visuals and sound are brilliant on their own, they're often let down by the gameplay, which struggles to live up to the world they created. And that's what I gotta say about BioShock Infinite. I was surprised that it wasn't as good as the first two games, but then again, you know, sometimes games do have their weak spot, and BioShock Infinite was that case there. I know people love this game, consider it the best game, better than BioShock 2, people say that is, but you know, I don't hate the game. I still think it's a good game, but compared to the other two, the problems really stand out. But now, before we can give this game a score, let's go to our TTBurger positives and negatives. For the TTBurger positives, a unique, beautiful world. Columbia is a visual and artistic triumph. Its design is masterpiece of environmental storytelling that perfectly reflects the city's hidden horrors. The world feels like a living museum full of small details and propaganda that invite you to uncover its dark secrets. A strong central relationship. The bond between Booker and Elizabeth is the heart of the experience and a highlight of modern gaming storytelling. The dynamic makes the game worth playing and provides a powerful emotional anchor. Elizabeth's AI is also a technical marvel, as she feels like a genuine helpful companion rather than a burden or a damsel in distress always getting shot at. Ambitious and emotionally impactful narrative. BioShock Infinite tackles huge themes and attempts at a truly mind-blending story that, while flawed, is a major talking point in gaming discussions. The emotional beats of the story, especially between Booker and Elizabeth, land with a genuine lasting impact. Exhilarating movement and combat. The Skyhook is a fantastic addition that makes traversal and combat feel incredibly fast and dynamic. Soaring through the city on the skylines is a highlight. It's a mechanic that sets the game apart, traveling from one hook to another. Exceptional art direction and soundtrack. The game's visual identity is its strongest asset, and is a world that is genuine pleasure to explore. The soundtrack with its brilliant blend of anachrostic covers and a period of appropriate tunes perfectly capture the game's bizarre, unsettling tone. For the TTBurger negatives, repetitive combat and simplified design. The core combat loop can feel tedious and linear. The lack of exploration and interconnectedness is a stark contrast to the original BioShock games. Simplified powers and gear. The Vigors, while visually impressive, lack the depth and combinational powers of the plasmids. The game's gear system also feels less strategic and impactful. Lack of player agency. Unlike the original BioShock, which presented players with significant moral choices, Infinite offers only a handful of superficial choices with no real consequences. Unexplored themes. The narrative introduces fascinating ideas, but many are left underdeveloped, leaving the world feeling shallower than it appears. In conclusion, the legacy of BioShock Infinite is a complicated one. It's a game that's both celebrated for its bold narrative and criticized for its mechanical shortcomings. For all its strengths in world building, art direction, and character development, it ultimately stumbles in its core gameplay and narrative execution. The combat is repetitive, lacks innovation in the first game, the first two games to be exact, and the story, while ambitious, fails to fully explore its most interesting themes. It's a game that feels like a classic case of style over substance, but the style is so strong and so unique that it's still a game well worth playing for its narrative vision and beautiful world. It stands as a compelling and flawed successor to a masterpiece. Beyond its own merits and flaws, BioShock Infinite is a game that is a clear example of the changing landscape of AAA game development. It took a franchise known for its immersive sim elements and linear story-driven gameplay and streamlined experience for a wider audience. This decision led to a game that's more accessible, but also intricate and less focused on players' choices. The game's success proves that a strong narrative and a unique world can carry a game even when its mechanics are not as deep as those of its predecessors. It stands as a pivotal moment in gaming history, and it must serve anyone interested in evolution of storytelling and interactive entertainment. But be warned though, you'll be wanting to go back to Rapture. And even though I forgot to mention this game contains a digital copy of BioShock, you can pretty much find the physical copy for not that much. So what do I say about BioShock Infinite? What's the score I give it? BioShock Infinite is gonna get a lower score than the first two games. And I know people like this game and say it's the best game ever in the franchise, and I admit it's a good game, just not as good as the other two is what I'm saying. BioShock Infinite, because of its problems, gets a 7 out of 10. I know it's a lower score, but in my opinion, it wasn't the best. It was the least best of the three games. And that's pretty much what I got to say about the BioShock franchise. Stay tuned, we got more coming along the way, along with some surprises for next month as well. Check out that, everybody. That's all I got to say. This is Tony. Peace and out. Have a good day. See you all in the next review.